Yo, 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 hit 'em high, hit 'em low. It's the No Bull Just Ball podcast. It's your boy Nick Hughes alongside Julian Delgado as always. How's it going, sir?
It's going swell. The classic is just keep giving us classics.
All right, right off the bat, we just have to start this with the
Yeah.
question being, is this more exciting than recent iterations of the MLB playoffs?
I besides the Cuba USA game, which even then started off really well and then got out of hand,
Yeah.
I would have to say yeah, because just scored runs, big strikeouts, big plays all over the place. It's been great. This has been definitely the best World Classic so far.
So I read it somewhere where they basically described it has the feel of every game is game seven because again, it's
Yeah,
win or
win
go
or go
home.
home.
And it's like all of these nations like rooting, because then yeah, like your interest turns from like you and I are Puerto Rican and Cuban, so obviously, rooting for those two teams and stuff. All of a sudden they're out. So now like some fans go, all right, I'm gonna root for Venezuela, I'm gonna root for Mexico, I'm gonna root for Team Japan. I know you're a big fan of Shohei Ohtani. You're riding with so it becomes this like, you know, it's almost the thing that it reminds me of is you remember as a kid playing like the rock, paper, scissors game, like in
Yeah,
gym class or something, and like every time somebody beats you, you get like a bigger crowd behind you.
that's what
Until
it is.
like that's really what it feels like. And like I'm such a fan of this.
It's so
Uh
good, man. It's
for
such
sure.
good. The numbers are proving it. I saw earlier today that the game with Japan and Mexico last night, where this is Tuesday recording it, 91% of TVs in Japan were watching the game.
I love that.
That's insane.
I love that so much. And I think it's sometimes lost because, in the United States, you know, there are two sports that are deemed objectively bigger, more global, or at least
Yeah,
takes up more of the screen time for us in the NFL and the NBA. And I think it's sometimes lost on how big and global the game of baseball
yeah,
itself is. Uh,
especially in
and
the
I,
recent decade,
yeah,
it's grown, and it's going to keep growing.
absolutely. And I will say what the World Baseball Classic has done to sort of further add that inclusive element to countries. We saw Czech Republic, we saw Australia already sort of had a presence with Great Britain, for example. And I love the video of the uh, the I think it was like a kindergarten class or a first grade class celebrating Harry
Yeah,
Ford, the catcher for Great Britain. They had like a Harry Ford day because he was a hero who got them their first win in the classic.
but
Uh,
even then, teams that have had teams for a while, like Mexico,
yeah,
finally having like that first like big run in it
yeah,
is big for it because I know when I was living in the West Coast, everyone was more soccer there, and then I'm assuming now things are going to start changing where it's like a big middle between soccer and baseball in Mexico.
yeah. So
Mexico,
tonight, championship game, U.S. versus Japan.
Japan. Yes,
Who you taking?
I'm taking Japan. I think they're riding off that the wave of energy that they had last night with that walk off.
Yeah.
I think the batter, especially Murakami, he's finally woken up, and that's a scary thing to have now in that lineup.
For sure. I'm gonna roll. I'm gonna go the same way. I think I had Japan from the outset. I think I had my original with Japan, Cuba. With Cuba sort of being this like dark horse running the table. But yeah, I'm taking Japan as well. I think they're just a stacked roster. Go toe to toe with anybody.
I just wish the Angels would have let Otani pitch today. That would have been perfect.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. All right, so we're going to move into, that's a good segue. We're going to move into the Major League Baseball season. We're going to talk today about the American League Central. All right. And we're going to jump right in with a team who won the division last year, the Cleveland Guardians. Their lineup, courtesy of Fangraphs, will be all of these. Looks akin to this. Starting in left field, Stephen Kwan. At shortstop, Ahmed Rosario. Third baseman, Jose Ramirez. In the cleanup spot, DH Josh Bell. At first base, Josh Naylor. Second base, Andres Jimenez. In right field, Oscar Gonzalez. Catching, Mike Zanino. and out in center field, Miles Straw. So a strong lineup right there already.
Very
Then you
strong lineup.
talk about the bench. It looks like Zach Collins is going to get the nod, as their backup catcher over Bo Naylor, brother of Josh. Gabriel Arias will be out there, Richie Palacios, and Will Brennan as well. So what are your takeaways on the lineup, the bench, how it sort of stacks out?
I don't know if we talked about this when they made the signing, but I genuinely think adding Josh Bell into this young lineup, even though Josh Bell is young himself,
Yeah,
gives him that extra power bat behind Ramirez that honestly can put them over a lot of teams. I'm
yeah,
really liking what I'm seeing, especially the projections. A lot of power, especially in the middle. Josh Naylor, Andres Jimenez, I think is going to have a lot better season than what is projected. Just because I'm also we've said this a bunch of times. I'm a firm belief if you have a strong World Classic, you're going to have a strong
yeah.
season. Um, I really like their outfield, strong defensively. I'm really liking what the Cleveland Guardians almost messed up the name. I really like what they have here with the lineup. It's definitely you're selling me on this team a little bit when I'm
Yeah,
looking
no,
at it.
for sure. A couple throw-ins I forgot to mention. Minor leaguers are guys who at least might not make the roster out of spring training, but still, are likely to see some playing time. Tyler Freeman saw some playing time at the big league level last year. On top of that, you'll go Brian Rocchio, who a lot of people are very excited about, switch hitting middle infielder. Jose Tena, all of them at the AAA level. Angel Martinez is another infielder out in the outfield. George Valera and John John Kenzie Noel. John Kenzie Noel, I believe his name is.
Yeah,
All right. So some interesting options out there. For me, my only hang up with this team is looking at the lineup. Uh, you got three lefties in that starting lineup, pair of switch hitters, four righties. Sounds balanced on paper. Uh, this is a team though for me that when you get down to it, late in ball games, I feel like there's a little bit almost too easy a relieving path to victory for opposing teams
yeah, I get
able to
that.
go. And it's three righties in Oscar Gonzalez, Mike Zunino, and Miles Strong, who particularly hit lefties well.
Yeah,
Uh, so, you can go with a power right-handed arm and just knock out that bottom of the lineup. And then, even middle of the lineup, Josh Bell hits better against righties as opposed to lefties. So you throw out a lefty to get Bell, Naylor, Jimenez. For me, it's kind of an iffy one. I would like to see them maybe try to upgrade one of the bats at the bottom at the very least to sort of shake things up.
yeah,
Another strong right-handed bat outside of Rosario would be good to see. Uh, but I mean, I really like it. But you see, this is the other one for me then. Even the bench is very left-handed
it is
down.
very lefty. Yeah,
I mean, Gabriel Arias is your only right-handed bat on this bench, and even among the guys I listed before, Bo Naylor would be another left-handed bench, another left-handed bat. Juan Brito, shout out to Brandon's dad. Uh, is a switch hitter, but
Butcher. Yeah,
I got stats here that say he hits righties better, so almost works as a left-handed bat. Jose Ten is a left-handed bat. It just feels very one side of the ball dominant. So I think it's a young team. It's going to be an exciting team. This lineup,
yeah. That'll definitely run into some issues once they hit the postseason. If they hit the
yeah,
postseason this year, um, definitely a more skilled manager and a more nuanced manager would definitely pick up on that. So that's something but Terry Francona is also one himself that knows how to balance the lineup.
yeah,
So if things start to struggle, we can definitely see the way that this is shift 1 through 9 will definitely switch up.
yeah. No, for sure. I can definitely see that. All right, we move on to the starting rotation. The rotation looks Shane Bieber, former Cy Young, pitching triple crown in the COVID season. Tristan McKenzie, Cal Quantrill, Aaron Civale, a friend of the show, and Zach Plesac. You look other guys who could see some time in that rotation. Unfortunately, I think we were looking to hopefully get our first, look at Daniel Espino this year, one of their top prospects, but people unfortunately missed the entirety of 2023. But also you got Xavier Curry, who got a look last year, Joey Cantillo, Connor Plickington, Jason Belouz. So a few guys who could see some time. Tuki Susan is part of the roster, former big leaguer. Logan Allen. So I mean, a few names in there that could see some time in that starting rotation if they want to expand it out to a six man or potentially sort of just injuries happen. So how do you feel about that rotation?
I think it starts off really strong. I think Shane Bieber's going to have a really good year. Tristan McKenzie was pretty much an unsung player that like really only like diehard baseball fans are like, oh, this kid, he can
Yeah,
sling it. Especially he's young, he's going to learn. I think he's going to grow. I think towards the end of the bottom of the rotations gets me kind of worried, and also the fact that it's very right. It's all five starters are right-handers.
yeah,
I
you'd like to
think
see
getting
that.
a lefty up at some
Yeah,
point just to test things out
yeah,
definitely helps. Um, I don't know. I really like it, especially having Cal as your third starter.
yeah.
It's pretty solid, but I don't know. What do you think?
For me, I mean, I agree with you. I think, my when we did our three words for 2023, I think my exact phrasing for this, and we'll get into the bullpen shortly, but the entire pitching staff needs an adult.
Yeah,
It's a very young pitching staff, guys who do have some major league experience, especially in the rotation. For me, I'm looking particularly at that 3-4-5. You got three guys in Quantrill, Savali, and Plisak who each have accumulated sort of 3 years of service time eligibility. They got another three to go. I'm looking to see one of them pitch for an extension. You
yeah,
know, the Guardians are not a team who have ever particularly spent big, except in-house. We saw the extension they extended to Jose Ramirez. Hopefully Shane Bieber gets one at some point soon. Uh, but I sort of look at it between those three guys as one of them has to sort of elevate themselves to a level where the Guardians are going to try to hang on to. So I'd be curious to see who that could be. The smart money is Quantrill, but Savali and Plesac have shown so many flashes of brilliance over the years that you definitely look there and say, oh, maybe. So as we move into the bullpen, this is where the youth is next level. So in the closing role, Emmanuel Clase, who was absolutely, maybe outside of Edwin Diaz, the best back end reliever in baseball last year. James Karinchak, Trevor Stephan, Nick Sandlin, Aniel De Los Santos, Eli Morgan, Tim Herron, and Hunter Gaddis. Unfortunately, Sam Hedges will open the season on the IL with some shoulder inflammation, hoping he can be back ahead of the All-Star break. This is a bullpen for me where I look at it and I'm saying, all right, I really like a lot of these young guys. I really like at some point in there, I want some veteran know-how.
yeah,
Uh, so there's a three-way tie between De Los Santos, Clase, and Karinchak in terms of having the most service time. Uh, uh, and Trevor Stephan, I guess, is an even 2 year. It's 2 years of service time. It's two big league seasons they've been out there for.
yeah.
Um,
Squad. That's cool.
that's not, you don't love that.
No one in that bullpen is above 27.
Yep, you don't love that.
That's
Uh,
rough.
you know, other guys that, maybe could see some time out there. Uh, you know, even just looking at their non-roster invites, I mean, the guy who have and nobody even in their non-roster invites. Let's see. Caleb Bragger had a year of service time at one point. Philip Deal didn't even accumulate the full year. John Romero is a non-roster invite this year. It's a very young, very inexperienced, but again, they did well last year. This is one of the top bullpens in baseball last year. And you throw in the fact that, they pitched very, very well in the playoffs last
Yeah.
year. Uh, I don't know. Does it worry you as much as it worries me?
Not for me, especially during the regular season. They're gonna have their ups and downs like every other team. What really the age doesn't really worry me. For me, it's the availability. They only have one left-hander available right now.
Yeah,
Obviously, when Sam Henches gets back, they'll have two, but that's still a very righty
yeah,
dependent lineup for
yeah. It's
bullpen.
kind of a weirdly like inverse, thing with their rotation
Yeah.
versus like not for nothing. Their lineup would tee off on this line on this rotation and
Oh
bullpen.
yeah.
A bunch of lefties beating up on the righties.
Uh,
So that's
for me, like I said, I would be more worried if Terry Francona wasn't the
yeah,
manager, and I think that's why I'm pretty keel set on like the age, and I'm all for the youth movement right now in Cleveland, just
yeah,
because you have that voice and the staff that Cleveland has,
yeah.
that gives you the faith in the kids.
Okay, I like that. All right, we're gonna move on over to the Kansas City Royals here. All right, is our next team. Their lineup, definite youth movement here. Uh, especially in the early going, you lead off with shortstop Bobby Witt Jr. back at his natural position over there after Adalberto Mondesi left. MJ Melendez is slated to DH, probably see some time in the corner outfield as well as catch. Behind the dish, Salvador Perez. Vinny Pasquantino will clean up and play first. Hunter Dozier at third, followed by Kyle Isbell at center. Edward Olivares will play left. Michael Massey at second. Nate Eaton in right. Other guys on the bench: Freddie Fermin, Matt Duffy, Franmil Reyes. The guy I'm surprised is not slated to be in this starting lineup is Nicky Lopez. But again, this is another very lefty heavy starting lineup. It's
Yeah,
literally right, left, right, left, right, left, right. Uh, I mean, interesting for sure. I'm curious to sort of see how that plays out. How do you feel about this lineup?
it's young, and that's why I'm kind of iffy on it. Like, I really like the names at the top of the list: Bobby Witt Jr., Melendez, Perez. It's very lacking in punch outside of the top three. I like Vinny Pasquantino, ah,
The Pasquatch.
Pasquantino, um, but everybody else is just they're not really doing it for me. I
Yes.
wouldn't be surprised if you see Nicky Lopez starting at second or first at any point throughout this year.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's youth movement. They're just trying to see how their prospects are going to work. Obviously, Bobby Witt and Salvi are going to be the two big names that are
Yeah.
going to win you games, but I don't see much else that can help produce wins really on this lineup.
Yeah, it's one of those lineups. You look for guys like Bobby Witt Jr. and MJ Melendez, even Pasquantino to take a step forward. Failed to mention Drew Waters is out with a strained oblique. He'll likely return and probably be their starting center fielder with Kyle Isbell moving to the bench, or maybe sort of take over and right for Nate Eaton. Other guys, Nick Preto is another first baseman that we could see a lot of. I think he's projected for what do we have here? 266 plate appearances. So that'll be a good amount for him. Uh, Samad Taylor could see some time on the infield. Michael Garcia, same deal. This is a weird team for me in the sense of there's not a lot of depth to the
Yeah,
lineup. Even when you start going down the list in the minor leagues, most of their prospects, at least on the offensive side of things, are still double A, single A. A lot of non-roster invites that you don't know if they stick around. These are guys who were in the system technically, like Jackie Bradley Jr. Is a name that jumps off the page. Matt Beatty, Johan Camargo. So some guys jump off the pages. Maybe they can get the roster or maybe see some time, but you don't know if they stick around long enough for that. But I agree with you. This is it's a lineup where I say I'm looking for them to take a step forward. I just don't know how big that step can be
yeah,
uh, this year. We move on to the rotation, and this is where it gets interesting because right now your big five, if you will, are slated to be Greinke, Jordan Lyles, Brady Singer, Ryan Yarbrough, Brad Keller. Uh, then you jump down to some of the other names likely to see some action in that rotation. Is where the youth really comes in with Daniel Lynch, Jonathan Hazley, Chris Bubich, Alec Marsh, Jonathan Bolin, Max Castillo, and Jackson Kowar. Mike Mayers is another name. Could see some time out there. So a very, very, very deep potential rotation. And that's
Yeah.
not even including Angel Zerpa, who's going to miss a good portion of the time for this team, but could potentially see some time in August or maybe the September call up after some shoulder surgery early on this year. So, what's your thoughts on that rotation?
It's definitely time for experimentations, especially with older names like Zach Greinke and Jordan Lyles. Um, I think it might be that swan song for Zach Greinke, where it's just he's going through
Yeah,
it in the time, tutoring the young kids. But I expect names like Brady Singer. I expect him to jump
yeah,
up and sort of make a name for himself this season. And I'm trying to remember where I had him in my notes. And a lot of the young kids like Daniel Lynch and Jonathan Heasley, I think they can see a lot of time up in the majors as well this year.
yeah, for
Like
sure.
I I can definitely see them going
Yeah,
through and
yeah,
just experimenting to see who hits and who's not hitting at the moment.
yeah. So during our prediction show, Brady Singer was a guy for me where I said, man, I love everything I've seen out of him. He's projected to have the best year in Kansas City.
Yeah,
It's a pitcher-friendly ballpark, generally speaking. I could see Brady Singer being one of those like shock Cy Young candidates with his stuff. I think it's electric. Um, so I'm interested to see him take a big step forward. And I get Greinke's the fun nostalgia name in Kansas City, so he's getting the opening day start. But Brady Singer's a guy that I look at and say, oh, that's really the ace. It's
yeah,
like when we talk about the Diamondbacks, and you say, all right, we know Bumgarner is going to get the opening day start, but we know it's Zach Gallen, kind of thing. So that's it. Very much has that same feel for me here.
yeah. Same here.
Uh, and then we jump into the bullpen. Scott Barlow closes the door, potentially, because I actually think that's reversed now. I think that was the whole deal here was Aroldis Chapman is supposed to be shutting things down with Barlow moving back to the setup role, but we'll see. Dylan Coleman is also out there. Taylor Clark, Amir Garrett, let's go St. John's. Josh Stalman, Josh Taylor, Carlos Hernandez in that long relief role. Jake Brentz, unfortunately, will miss most of the season, if not all of it, after Tommy John July of last year. Trying to think if there's any names. Richard Lovelady, Jose Cuas, Colin Snyder could see some time out there. Uh, Brooks Kriske, former Yankee prospect, I believe. Uh, Ryan Weiss. That's some names that could pop up from minor leagues and play a bullpen role per se. But just sort of looking at what that is, I'm going to be honest. For me, this is the strength of this ball club.
Yeah, no, I really like
Um,
this bullpen.
a theoretical for me, 7, 8, 9. Again, Chapman, I don't think will do well psychologically outside of the 9 hole. We've seen that enough in New York. So for me, if you go in Coleman, Barlow, Chapman to close the door as a best case scenario, 7, 8, 9, I love it. It's you got some good lefties aside from Chapman. Amir Garrett is when he's on, he's on. And when he's on, he's usually fighting Javier Baez. So that'll be fun.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
love that
Josh
they're in the same division.
Taylor
I
and
love
Hayden
that they're
Boston. Huh?
that I love that they're in the same division.
Yeah, always. That's one of those like fight forever moments that I'm a big fan of. Big, big fan. Yeah. Um, how do you feel?
Yeah, no, I really like this bullpen. The struggle I think that the new manager is gonna have is wrestling that 7, 8, 9 role.
Yeah,
I with Chapman's past performances, to me, to be honest, in order to get Barlow and Coleman their also their dues as well, I feel like it has to go to Scott Barlow first.
yeah,
And if Chapman wants that role, he has to earn it back,
for
especially
sure.
being the veteran. the young team. I feel like
Feedback.
they have to be he has to be the one that earns it back out of everybody. But I
I
like it. It's very balanced with righties and lefties, big
yeah,
names, big strikeout, big stuff.
yeah,
I do really like what I'm seeing here, and then the potential of adding the kids from the minor league. It can get interesting,
yeah,
especially around the All Star break when some of these names are probably going to end up getting shipped off, especially the older names.
yeah. No, it's definitely interesting. I think Barlow for me is a guy who, it was touched on last year that maybe he gets moved this year, depending, could definitely be the year.
Yeah,
We'll move on to a team we kind of alluded to a second ago in the Detroit Tigers. Uh, their lineup looks as such at the moment. Akil Baddoo will play left field and lead things off. Javier Baez batting second, interestingly enough.
it is.
Playing shortstop, Riley Green in center field, Austin Meadows at right, Spencer Torkelson. We'll have a platoon situation at DH between Kerry Carpenter and Miguel Cabrera in his swan song. I expect him to probably actually get a lot more looks than
Oh yeah,
they're giving him credit for here, especially in a farewell tour. Jonathan Scope will play second. Nick Maton from the Phillies uh, will be at third, and then Jake Rogers behind the plate. Their bench will look like Eric Haas, who's going to kind of an interesting guy just as a lineup piece, but Miguel Cabrera, Zach Short, Matt Vierling, some other players to note on the IL with a strained oblique as of about 2 weeks ago. Tyler Nevin, who I was actually really excited to sort of get some more consistent playing time on this team. Um, some other guys who get some looks out here. Let's see. Uh, Wencio Perez is an interesting name as a sort of a second base, third base option. Ryan Kriedler is another one. Andy Ibanez, who's playing for the Cuban national team, definitely I think would make it onto this team
oh yeah,
at some point, and Parker Meadows in an outfield capacity. So it's not a deep lineup. It's not deep.
it's not deep.
However, this is a lineup where I'm gonna be honest. And again, it's a big if, but if they can be right, the names on this team that I love, what we saw from Akil Baddoo to open his rookie campaign and then injuries
Yeah,
derailed was something special. Javier Baez, I think you picked him as
oh,
your
I love me some Javi.
yes, we do. Yes, we do. Always somehow manages to convince me he's the best player in baseball, but I just don't know. Like no one else knows it except for me. So we're expecting a huge bounce back from him. Riley Green, top prospect. Spencer Torkelson, top prospect. Austin Meadows, when he's right, is something special. Uh,
Jonathan
it's
Hope is a solid bat.
yeah. I mean, I like I like some of it. I don't love the depth by any means.
Yeah,
Um, I'm hoping for, some fun out of Miggy in his farewell tour. But it'll be interesting if nothing else. How do you
oh,
feel?
for sure. This is definitely one of those lineups where you could sell me on them being very productive, especially if the young kids produce and everybody takes that step that everyone's been expecting Detroit to make.
Yeah,
But it could also be one of those lineups that like the kids aren't ready yet, but they're still just going
yeah,
through the motions. Um, I'm positive. I'm hoping that it's the former, where they're just producing and everyone's like, okay, Detroit's maybe a year or two away from really, really being in this thing and seeing what they have. I like the young kids. I suspect that this is one of those lineups where you might see some of the same names, barring no injury, but the way it's shuffled is definitely going to change.
yeah.
Especially
No,
if
for sure.
Torkerson can get hot, he
Yeah,
can get moved up in the lineup. He can get like anybody. Like I think this is probably one of the most fluid lineups in the
yeah,
major.
for sure. And a guy who's never been shy about sort of shuffling lineups, especially during his time in Houston. Um, I don't know why it's escaping me at the moment. Uh, the manager for the Tigers is the former Astros manager who's suspended from baseball. Um,
AJ Hinch.
yeah, AJ Hinch. Uh, yep. So he's gonna play around. He's gonna try to get the best out of the bats. He's always I think done a very good job with that. Moving on to the rotation, it reads at least for the moment as Eduardo Rodriguez, Matthew Boyd, Michael Lorenzen will see some time in the rotation and probably the bullpen. Matt Manning, Spencer Turnbull. Currently on the IL is Casey Mize and Tarek Skubal. Two guys who, for me, when right, are probably, looking at this rotation, probably 2 and 3 on this rotation.
Yeah,
So unfortunately, I don't know how much we'll see of Casey Mize, if at all,
probably
due
if
to
we do
talking to
see him, it'll probably just be August, September, maybe.
him. Yeah. And Tarek Subal has had tendon surgery, so he'll also be missing a good chunk of time.
Yeah,
Some other names who could see some time. Joey Wentz is going to be an interesting one. Saw some time in the big leagues last year. Bo Brisky, Garrett Hill, Reese Olson, Alex Fido, Ronnie Garcia is going to see some time in the rotation now out in the pen as well. Um, so some interesting names there. How do you feel so far about this rotation? Also, the big caveat being the Eduardo Rodriguez sort of fiasco of him. I think last year he just skipped out on the Tigers for like a considerable amount of time and then
yeah, it's
made his
gonna.
way back, and then nobody ever addressed that he just decided to take some time off. So how do you feel like?
This is where a lot of the question marks for me are. I think without Casey Mize and Tarek Skubal, it's going to be even more question marks than before because I do really like those two. They're definitely your two and third best starters
Yeah,
in the organization. Um, I really wish that they'd come back so it's like you could really see the full
yeah,
scale of what this team could be. Um, and hopefully, just they're probably just praying that Rodriguez doesn't have another meltdown like that again.
yeah,
Because without that and some of the lineups in this division and they're going to face, it can get a little rough.
yeah. The other thing for me is I look at this rotation as, just sheerly based on, the fact that several of these guys are on 1 year deals, free agent signings, or, approaching free agency pretty rapidly. I look at so Matthew Boyd, Michael Lorenzen, and Spencer Turnbull is all guys who, with some strong outings in the early going, could actually play their way onto a maybe more legitimate contender in
Yeah.
search of starting pitching, which is always a need. So that's interesting for me. In the bullpen, we go. Alex Lange is projected to get the most save opportunities. Jason Foley, Jose Cisnero, Will Vest, Trey Wingenter. I never know how to say his name. Tyler Alexander, Chase and True, former Yankee, and Mason Angler. Also projected to get some time in the bullpen. Brendan White, Tyler Holton, Edwin Uceta, and Freddie Pacheco, who are all slated to start the season at least in the minor leagues and then sort of move their way up. Like I said, like I said before, Michael Lorenzen could potentially slot back into a bullpen role at some point, depending. How do you feel about that bullpen?
To me, it's got a lot of question marks, to be honest.
Yeah,
I'm not a big fan of a lot of the names, especially now that what's his name? Oh, Gregory Soto got traded.
yeah, agreed.
Um, that was probably one of the few things I was looking forward to when I would watch Detroit basketball. Like, all right, let me see what stuff Soto has today. Um, they're probably just hoping that someone just comes in, makes a name for themselves again. They're probably banking on that.
Yeah,
Very righty heavy too. Now that I'm looking at it, there's only two lefties right there.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, I'm just not really a big fan of what they got going on in the pen.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. I think Jose Cisneros is approaching free agency. I could see him
Yeah.
try to play up his way to more save opportunities and be another guy on on his move to another team come the trade deadline. Tyler Alexander has always been kind of this wishy-washy thing for me. When he's on, I love him. When he's off, he's tough to watch. But it'll be interesting. A lot of these guys will be. So I very much agree with you there. As we flip over now to the Minnesota Twins. And this is going to be a very interesting lineup. Don't I don't know how else to say this. Don't pay too much attention to the positions defensively. Because as I this leads off with Byron Buxton DHing, which I guess they're going to try to do a good amount to keep him healthy. But then you go Carlos Correa, shortstop, Max Kepler in right, Jose Miranda playing third, Joey Gallo in left, Christian Vasquez behind the plate, Alex Kirilloff at first, Michael Taylor in center, Nick Gordon second base. On the bench, you go Ryan Jeffers, Kyle Farmer, Donovan Solano, and Trevor Larnach. Uh, Guys who are unfortunately going to be out, at least to open the season, it seems. Jorge Polanco, who's been out since knee inflammation issues sprung up in August of last year. You hope to see him back to sort of take over the duties at second base there. Gilberto Celestino oof, uh, has a ruptured thumb ligament that'll keep him out for a considerable amount of time. Royce Lewis, one time considered to be the fastest prospect in baseball, is now fresh off knee surgery, so he'll miss a little bit of time. Some other guys we could see in the big leagues at some point this year. Chan Cisco, Grayson Grenier, Tony Walters is a non-roster invite at the moment for them. Tyler White, Hernan Perez, Andrew Bechtold, Austin Martin is an interesting name for me. And Willie Castro, former Tiger, Kyle Garlick, Ryan Lamar, former Yankee. I mean, there's some interesting names that could pop up. How do you feel about, what this lineup is, or at the very least what it could be?
I it's another one of those situations where if they fall flat in their face, you can definitely sell me on that, especially with losing Luis Arraez.
Yeah,
I feel like it's missing something.
yeah,
I like having Christian Vasquez there, solid catcher. Um, for me, I don't know. It's just something weird that you can't really sell me on this lineup, even though they have good names in there. Especially
yeah,
missing Jorge Polanco. I think once he gets back, it'll probably bolster it a little bit. Because the back end of the lineup, I really don't like 7, 8, 9 spots.
yeah,
Um, and I get what they're doing, trying to get DH with Byron Buxton, if that's exactly what they're going to be doing.
yeah,
Keep him healthy because he's the key to this team succeeding.
yeah.
That's
Very much
exactly what
agree.
happened last year. Is once he started, seeing the IR a little bit, they started sliding and losing the division.
Yeah. I think I'm most curious, uh, not at how this lineup looks to start, but I think this is going to be a very different lineup come season's end. We've
Yeah,
heard the rumors with Max Kepler sort of being this, frequently floated lefty bat there. Um, Alex Kirilloff, a natural corner outfielder, playing first base for pretty sustained, for pretty sustained stretches is going to be interesting to me. So I'm interested to sort of see what they do there, potentially make a move for a more consistent first base bat. A guy I feel like we always bring up in that situation is CJ Cron. Um, so I mean, it's maybe a Christian Walker from Arizona. So sort of interested to see, based on the start they get off to, if they
yeah.
start making some
That's something I'm
moves.
willing to see is what kind of season do they start off with? How are
Yeah,
they by the trade deadline? And
yeah,
definitely see a different roster and a different lineup.
yeah. Very much agreed. And this is a fluctuating lineup at the very least for me. Interestingly enough, though, when you go to to the starting rotation, I should say, leads off with newcomer Pablo Lopez. You mentioned Arias, who's now in Miami. this was almost a one-for-one swap there, if not a straight up one-for-one. Pablo Lopez now is their ace. Sonny Gray to follow, Joe Ryan after that, Tyler Malley, Kenta Maeda, Chris Paddock, still out with Tommy John from last year, expected to be ready sort of midway through the season to sort of make some pitching appearances for them. Other guys who could see some action in the lineup and the rotation, I should say. Bailey Ober, Josh Winder, Ronnie Henriquez, Simeon Woods Richardson, Cole Sands, Jordan Balazovic, I don't know how to say that, Louis Varland, and Brent Herdick. A lot of youth sort of, in the farm system ready to sort of come up and make a splash, which is interesting when you consider how many of these starting pitchers are due for free agency in very short order. Gray, Malley, and Maeda. For me, this is going to be, honestly, I think the strength of this team is going to be their starting rotation.
Yeah.
Um,
Which is weird because I feel like the starting rotation last year was probably one of their weaknesses outside of like
yeah, it just has a different feel at this point.
Yeah, now that you added Lopez.
Yeah, add Lopez, Maeda healthy, a full season of Tyler Mahle there.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting for me to see sort of what it ultimately turns into, but at least for right now, this is a rotation I really like. There's a few guys who can sort of jump off the page, in Pablo Lopez and Joe Ryan in particular. Sonny Gray outside of New York is, damn near an ace. Maeda and Miley, very interesting guys. As we move into the bullpen, though, this is going to be sort of another split closing, who wins it out.
Yeah.
Jorge Lopez, most recently pitching for Team Puerto Rico, followed by Joan Duran, Griffin Jacks, Caleb Theobar, Emilio Pergan, Jorge Alcala, Giovanni Moran, and Randy Dobnak, former starter that will likely transition to a bullpen role. A few other guys who could see some time out there: Trevor McGill, former Cub, Danny Columbe, Jeff Hoffman, Tyler Webb is an interesting name in their farm system. How do you like what they're doing in the bullpen?
I actually really like their bullpen, especially the two-headed monster of Jorge Lopez and Johan Duran. If they get a lead in the eighth, I think it's gonna. I don't know if they're gonna have the typical closer. I just think that if the middle of the opposing team's lineup is up on the eighth inning as opposed to the ninth, we'll probably see Jorge Lopez that inning, and then Duran gets the save, quote unquote.
Yeah.
But I guess definitely see something like that. Especially, I think the middle of their lineup middle of the bullpen is really well balanced, righties and lefties.
Yeah.
I'd like to see another lefty arm, but I still think it's really good. I think Emilio Pagan's going to have a really good season this year. I expect some jumps out of him. I think Giovanni Moran he's a young kid. I liked what I saw last year in the few games that I did get to see him.
No, for sure. I will say I think there's a little bit of bias here, considering how many of these guys are Puerto Rican and pitched for the Puerto Rican national team.
Oh yeah, I mean, and they did well, like outside
for
of
sure.
Okay,
So for me, this is a strong bullpen. The Twins for years of turning out powered lineups with sort of an iffy pitching staff now feels very inverted. I
this
like
doesn't
the
feel like a
rotation.
typical Twins team.
Yeah, it's very, very different feel to this one. So I'm interested to sort of see how that plays in target field and stuff. And now that they'll really be facing essentially every lineup in baseball, is going to be a very interesting thing. Moving over to the last team in this division, the Chicago White Sox. Here I am in U.S. Cellular Field. Or no, now it's Guaranteed Rate Field. I always hate when they change these things. It makes it difficult for me to keep track.
Yeah.
But this is Guaranteed Rate Field. So that lineup's going to kick off with Tim Anderson playing shortstop, currently still playing second base for Team USA at the moment, but we'll see him back essentially tomorrow. in a White Sox uniform. Luis Robert in center field, Cuban team standout. Andrew Benintendi is their new signing left. Eloy Jimenez cleaning up. Another Cuban player, Yohan Moncada at third base. Andrew Vaughn at first. Yasmani Grandal will do the catching. Rookie Oscar Colas slated into the starting lineup at right field. Elvis Andrews will play second. Other guys on the bench, Sebi Zavala, sorry. Gavin Sheets, Jake Berger, Lodi Garcia. Um, let's see who we got. Carlos Perez could see some time in the big leagues behind the plate, along with Sebastian Ruggiero. Romy Gonzalez had some really good defensive plays last year for them up the middle, so it's like to see him sort of get back to it. Hanser Alberto's on the team here. Lenin Sosa could see some time in the big leagues, got a cup of coffee up there last year. And then the curiosity sort of bleeds into, the outfield, guys who, if Oscar Carlos, the rookie, is not living up to it right away, or potentially could be, sort of dropped to AAA to start the season and work his way up. Could we see Yoelqui Cespedes finally? Could we see Victor Reyes, Billy Hamilton, Jake Marisnick, Adam Halsey? This has got a pretty solid number of former big leaguers that could see some time in that sort of outfield rotation for the White Sox. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. How do you feel so far about the White Sox lineup there?
I thought with the subtraction of I don't know why his name is escaping me right now.
Jose Abreu?
Oh yeah, Jose Abreu. Sorry about that. I thought it would not really sell me on this lineup as much, um, but I still really like it. I think Tim Anderson, Luis Robert, and I think the Benintendi signing is probably really low key slept on because it adds a different depth to this lineup, whereas
Yeah,
opposed to more power heavy, it's definitely given more slapper, run the bases. Let's use our speed and athleticism that this team does have
yeah,
outside of Grandal. Even Moncada can run it a little bit. Um, I really like Jake Berger off the bench. He had a really solid second half of the season last year when he got called up.
yeah.
I expect him to eventually probably end up beating Andrew Vaughn for that first base spot
Ooh,
towards
okay.
the end of the year. I think he's going to have a really good year. And I really want to see Yoleckis at some point this season
Yeah,
for me to really be sold on this team.
yeah,
I do like it a lot. And of course, we have the old added, the witch is dead. Tommy La Russa's gone. And I just think that it's gonna give some type of energy to this White Sox team that we haven't seen since 2020.
yeah. For me, sort of piggybacking on that, this is one of those I like the lineup, but I like the lineup last year.
Yeah,
And again, can Luis Roberts stay healthy? Can Yohan Moncada stay healthy? Can Eloy Jimenez stay healthy? Can Yasmani Grandal stay healthy?
yeah,
Uh, yeah, will they ever find a permanent second baseman? I feel like every year we do
next time.
the find out next time on Dragon Ball Z, and it just, you know, there are parts of this lineup I love. Luis Robert, when he's out there and healthy, he's, damn near as good as anybody in baseball. Tim Anderson has been consistently good. I'm curious now actually to see if, especially considering that he played some second base, in the World Baseball Classic, could there be this, move to potentially, bring in a shortstop instead? But you also run the risk of alienating him with his contract expiring. I think he has one more team option this year.
Yeah, and I would also be surprised too if maybe we could see like Colson Montgomery show up at some point to fill out either of those middle infield positions.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. I think that'd be a lot of fun. This is a team that's felt that for some reason has an older feel than it is when I look at the lineup. But we'll see. Moving on to the starting rotation here. It goes Dylan Cease, who was a surprise sort of Cy Young candidate last year, pitched incredibly. Lance Lynn, Lucas Giolito, Mike Clevenger, Michael Kopech to follow. Uh, let's see, who do we have? Some guys who could see some time in that starting rotation. Davis Martin, who was up for a cup of coffee last year. Jonathan Stever, AJ Alexi, former Twin and Ranger. Uh, Matthew Thompson is a top prospect for them. So he could potentially sneak into that rotation at some point this year. Um, how do you like that rotation?
I like the front half of it. The bottom two is what really kind of worries me. I'm hoping it's just maybe just because of their age. Um, I am hoping Michael Kopech turns into something.
Yeah,
Um, but I really love the three-headed Dylan Cease, Lance Lynn, Lucas Giolito. They've always been very reliable, and
yeah,
you can definitely bet on them to have solid seasons, especially Dylan Cease. Hopefully, he can, repeat what he did last year and improve on it. And if that
yeah.
happens, Major League is in for a lot of trouble with him.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
for me, I think Michael Clevenger is kind of like the odd man out for me. I'm not really sold on his stuff. Um, Especially seeing him throughout. He hasn't really wowed much people. So
yeah,
I expect them to be making, if they're in it, I can see them definitely going for an arm, whether
yeah,
it's in the bullpen or in the starting rotation.
yeah. So looking at the bullpen, this is at one point considered to be the overwhelming strength of this team, and now uh, definitely not what you're hoping for. Liam Hendricks, unfortunately, will be out. We still don't even have a timetable. He's suffering from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, so again, we wish him all the best. It feels unlikely, at least for the time being, that we will see him in the 2023 season. Matt Foster recently suffered a strained forearm, so he'll miss opening day. However, he'll be back to the roster soon for them. And then sort of the guy who feels, at least stuff-wise, like the natural closer to be, heir to the closer throwing Garrett Crochet at Tommy John in April last year. He should be back early this season, but we're not entirely sure yet on a timetable. So until then, they go closer by committee. Five potential guys we'll see save opportunities is very interesting. Kendall Graveman, Aaron Bomer, Joe Kelly, Reynaldo Lopez, Jake Diekman, Jose Ruiz, Nick Avila, and their long guy would be Jimmy Lambert. Some other guys who could see some time in that bullpen: Gregory Santos, Tanner Banks, Franklin Herman, and Nicholas Padilla. Excuse me. Also, former a guy I think we both really liked for a long time. I didn't realize it was a non-roster invite for them this year. Is Kanan Middleton,
Ooh,
former Angel. Uh, like to see him.
I could see him making a name in that bullpen.
Yeah. Um, So I guess, obviously this is a very hurt bullpen. So
Yeah.
I right now I don't want your how do you feel about the bullpen as a whole? I want the who gets so it's projected via Fangraphs that essentially Kendall Graveman gets the most back into the bullpen opportunities. That's subject to change, obviously. Who is your guy from that crop of bullpen talent who emerges as their late inning guy until Crochet and Foster return?
I can definitely see like Aaron Boomer making kind of a name for it and probably a big run towards the middle of the season. Lefty thrower. He's got a really good fastball. I like his breaking ball. He was pretty solid for them last year, and I expect him to, probably. I don't know if he'll edge out Kendall Graveman, but definitely give
Yeah.
him a fight for that spot.
Yeah. For me, I'm gonna actually go Reynaldo Lopez. I think again, I'm always a big guy. The contract, I'm always a big contract year guy.
Yeah,
And beyond that, I've loved everything he has been since moving into a bullpen role. It's always unfortunate when you throw around the term failed starter, but in that rotation, he never really felt, like he had a spot
yeah,
when the White Sox, acquired him from the Nationals. He's always sort of felt, and he didn't quite have it to go the distance, but since then, you really quickly fall in love with what he can be and what he can do in that bullpen, limited out in limited stretches. So I'd like to see him get a crack at it for sure. So with that being said, we're gonna go down the line. We're gonna go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in this division. You're gonna tell me, the team you got in what spot, And each stop along the way, you're going to be one guy you really want us to keep an eye on from that roster because we're a positive podcast, man. We like to bring smiles to folks' faces.
Yeah.
So we'll start in that 5 spot. Who do you got?
For me, I got Kansas City being the bottom man out here again. I just don't have much strength, much faith in that lineup. The rotation's kind of iffy, and I don't think this team will have a lot of leads to really lean on that bullpen that is their strength. So for me, though, the name to look out for is I know everyone's going to be talking about Salvi and Bobby Witt. I think MJ Melendez is going to be the key for them really clicking and getting everything together.
Love that. Love that. I'm going to agree with you. The Kansas City Royals for me, I feel like they lack, enough depth in a lot of spots. And again, that bullpen looks great on paper, but you need a lead for it to really, do something with it. For me, the guy I'm going to spotlight, I already did Brady Singer. I've talked ad nauseum about him, I feel. So I'm going to go with a different start. Ryan Yarbrough is a guy I saw a lot of as a Yankee fan watching Tampa Bay. For me, the fact that he now has a consistent starting opportunity, I feel like fans in baseball have long wanted to see this guy just get a break, and he just never really had it in Tampa Bay. There was always just too much depth in that rotation. So for me, seeing Yarbrough get to really just unleash as a starter is going to be a fun thing to watch. I think it's going to be a great thing for baseball, and he might shock some folks with an All-Star appearance. So I'm going Yarbrough there. Uh, Up next, I'll go number 4 here. I have the Tigers in my 4 slot.
Okay.
I want them to be better. It's one of those teams like I talked about. Uh, if everything goes right, I love what this team can be. A lot of things have to go right though. So the name I'm gonna go with to just sort of, really keep an eye on this year. Um, Man, I'm gonna go Spencer Torkelson.
Okay.
His rookie campaign was not pretty. But from a guy who you're expecting to sort of be the heir to that Mickey throne, I think he's going to have a lot of pop, hopefully in his bat this year. Kind of, shake the cobwebs off, shake the nerves off. You've been through this for the better part of an entire big league season. So, sort of, I want to see him get into a rhythm early and really start to get through the ball like we saw him do in college and in the minor leagues. I believe is a former #1 overall pick. So definitely something you want to see. So
Yeah, for me, I'm same way. I got Tigers in the fourth seed there.
yeah,
Uh, but you can sell me on them maybe rising to 3. I'm not that sure on it. 3 and 4 is kind of going back and forth for me.
yeah,
Um, and it all comes down to I'm going to list 2 names here. It all comes down to Javi Baez and I think Riley Green.
okay,
Those 2 guys in the middle of the heart of that lineup, they got to produce. They got to limit their strikeouts. They got to get on base, and I think the shift rules will probably help them, especially
yeah,
Riley Green being the young guy. But they got to cut it down on strikedowns, and they got to produce and bring this team to what they could be in the future.
yeah. Number 3 here. You want to kick us off?
Yeah, number 3, I am going with Minnesota. I'm not that high up on the team. It's one of those teams where like I don't know exactly where they're going to line up. Like they could win the division or they could finish in 4th if everything goes wrong.
Yeah,
Because things have usually gone wrong for the Twins in recent years. Um, for me, the guy that stands out that needs to is probably Pablo Lopez. He's got to have a good year getting traded, got to have that chip on your shoulder and show them exactly why you traded for me.
yeah. I mean, I hear you on that one. That makes a lot of sense to me. Um, for me, I'm see where you went 3-4 was your back and forth. For me, 2-3 is my back and forth. But I'm gonna agree
Yeah.
with you overall. I'm gonna go Minnesota here.
Yeah.
I feel like again, this is a lineup in particular that's gonna be very subject to change. Uh, And the guy I'm going to go with to sort of keep a tab on in this Minnesota lineup is a guy who's on the IL at the moment, but expected to be back soon. Former top prospect Royce Lewis. I've been big on him for a very long time. The flexibility of where he can play, the sort of speed, that he can bring to a lineup. Um, the glove is there, the speed is there. The baseball knowledge has always seemed to be there. He's an athlete with the brains, just can the bat work at the big league level? And for me, it feels a bit like it's a now or never thing for him.
Yeah.
Carlos Correa being re-signed long term also means, in all likelihood, next year in the offseason, uh, the Twins could potentially be looking to lock up Blanco long term. They might be looking to add maybe another infielder, maybe a more consistent outfield crop alongside Buxton. So he's playing for a spot at this point, is how I look at it,
Yeah.
whether it be in Minnesota or elsewhere via trade. So, you know, I definitely think Royce Lewis it's his time or it isn't. And,
Yeah.
for his sake, I'm going, it's his time. Um, Up next in second place in this division, I have the Chicago White Sox. This is a team I think on paper, again, I could sell myself on the oh man, I really love this lineup top to bottom. I really feel it. It's there, it's there. Unfortunately, though, you fool me once, shame on you. You fool me twice, yeah, you don't get fooled again.
Yeah.
So this time I'm gonna go my guy to watch. I love Luis Robert, love Tim Anderson. This is gonna be tough. Ultimately, though, I'm actually gonna go with a member of the rotation. I'm gonna say Lucas Giolito.
All right.
Lucas Giolito, another contract year guy, lost some steam in the past year or two post pandemic. Has never really felt like the guy we thought would be a Cy Young winner. I want to see him stake his claim to this top of a rotation, whether it be on the White Sox for the foreseeable future or elsewhere. Uh, I love what his stuff is when he's on. I would like to see him on again. So I'm going to say Lucas Giolito is my guy to watch.
Nice. I also have the White Sox, so I think we pretty much are agreeing on this whole division.
Yeah.
For me, it has to be. I really don't want to say Robert, but it has to be Robert. You got to stay healthy, man. You got to
Yeah.
stay healthy for this team to really unlock what this lineup can produce and what it can be. Um, if I want to go a name outside of that, I think Garrett Crochet, when he comes back, is
Yeah.
going to be a big, big piece for that bullpen. It can probably fill that hole that Liam Hendricks is,
Yeah.
the Liam Hendricks void. That'll probably be the one person that, like, once he gets back and healthy, look out for that. Look out for him. He's going to have some nasty stuff when he's back.
All right. I love it. So we're unanimously going Cleveland Guardians at the top here. You want to give me your guy?
My guy is probably going to be Josh Bell.
Ooh.
I don't know why I feel like he fits this team very well. And I think having him in the heart of the lineup behind Jose is just going to add an extra little just threat that this team kind of was felt like it was missing last year.
Yeah.
It was a solid team, solid lineup. It just felt like it was missing that one little power bat. And I feel like Josh Bell is definitely going to be able to fill that up.
I like that. I actually really like that a lot. For me, I'm gonna go a slightly different route here. Because I have the Cleveland Guardians as my team. This is a Guardians team that loves you. They always have. They always want to promote from within.
Yeah.
And Ahmed Rosario is a guy who has never really felt longed for the Guardians. Is due to be a free agent at the end of the year. I'm gonna pick from the crop of theoretical replacements long term who will see some time here. That crop for me is Gabriel Arias, Tyler Freeman, and Brian Rocchio. Uh, and for me, the guy that just feels like, you know what, it's his time, Brian Rocchio.
Okay.
What he can be as either a second baseman with Andres Jimenez sliding back to shortstop full time or vice versa. another switch hitting bat. Very contact oriented, can be that sort of slap hitter at the top of the lineup, but at the very least is going to be a speed and defense guy, which plays so big in Cleveland always.
Yeah.
I'm going to say he's my guy. Once he gets to the big league level at some point this year, I think fans in Cleveland are going to fall in love with him, and I think the baseball world will as well. So
I can see that.
those are our picks.
Do you have any team outside of Cleveland making the postseason?
This is a tough one for me. And the reason this is tough is in this new world that we live in. We got a year of the 3 playoff teams. And now you also factor in the possibility of like, all right, so how do these guys play against everyone in the big leagues, not just, being able to beat on up on the Royals and Tigers, the theoretical low men in the division. This was a very hit or miss for me. But again, I did this in our AL version of this. I tipped my hat a little bit, or I tipped my hand, I should say. I feel like the East is too strong to not have 2 teams come out. So for me, this is going to be it's going to be kind of a one-sided thing here for me. I'm going to say it's just the Guardians coming out.
Okay. For me, I think I'm just too much of an optimist of Tony being gone. And I talked about this during the 20 question episode. I think Chicago makes the 3rd wild card spot.
Wow. Oh man.
I could be wrong.
So,
I probably am wrong.
All right. So in the Nick and Julian cinematic universe, if you will, you now have the Astros as your top wild card.
Yes.
The White Sox as the 3rd.
Yes.
So let's see who slots into that second one.
Find out on the AL East.
Oof, that is beautiful. Beautiful way to do that. Thank you for doing this with me, bud. I always enjoy it.
Really fun.
It's a great time. Thank you guys for joining us. Was a lot of fun. Very interesting division for sure. Julian didn't mention already. I mean, this is the division where I think you can sort of sell us on anyone finishing first and anyone finishing last. So we really enjoy you guys tuning in. So it has been real. It has been nice. It has been really, really nice. And we will do this again very, very soon.